Hi and welcome everyone to today's webinar, where we'll be discussing how far or how not far maybe AI in recruitment has actually come, what's been successful, what's been more of a letdown over this past year. My name is Tove. I'm head of marketing here at Jobylon, and I'll be your moderator today. We have two eminent guests with us. You'll get to introduce yourselves in just a second. But for those of you who are new to us at Jobylon, we are an applicant tracking system helping enterprise companies across the globe with their hiring. We're especially appreciated for our flexibility and how closely we work with our customers to truly customize our platform to their needs. So that's a little bit about us if we're new to you. But of course, this webinar, we're going to be talking about so many other things, and I'd love to get into that with our guests. So, Fredrik, would you like to introduce yourself and, of course, also Hubert?
Sure. First of all, happy to be on this call. So my name is Fredrik, CEO and co-founder of Hubert. We are a partner to Jobylon, meaning that all our AI technology can be accessed directly in the Jobylon system. So what is Hubert? Hubert is an AI-powered interview agent designed for high-volume recruitment. We help organizations to screen and interview candidates in a structured, fair, and scalable way. The idea is simple. Let AI handle the early conversations so recruiters can focus on the human parts of hiring, meaning judgment, relationships, and potential. Today, Hubert is used by organizations globally to handle large candidate volumes while improving consistency, fairness, and candidate experience. Wasn't that a great sales pitch?
That was a very great sales pitch. It's
Done that
almost like
before,
you're
haven't
the
you?
CEO or something.
Exactly.
Yeah. Alex, what about you? Of course, you don't have to introduce Jobylon again, but who are you?
Uh, I'm Alex, licensed psychologist turned product officer. So I'm doing everything regarding the product at Jobylon, which is a lot of really cool things to do. So everything about deciding a roadmap, what we're gonna do next, how we're gonna build a platform. So all of that. And I just realized that I'm wearing the exact same shirt as I do in the picture. I think that's a good thing, so you remember me.
True. That's your signature
It's
shirt.
the same shirt apparently.
I
I
love
own
it.
two little clothes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's what we're realizing live in this webinar. You never know what's going to happen live,
No,
and
no,
here we
no.
are. All right, but let's talk a little bit about what we're actually going to cover in today's session. And while I do that, I'm actually going to launch a little poll question. So those of you who are joining us live, please answer, where are you using AI today? And you have some options here on screen. But what are we talking about today? Well, for those of you who have joined our previous sessions, or for those of you who may not have, over the past year, we've actually had Hubert as guests before and Alex as well, in two previous sessions where Fredrik has spoken about agentic AI, which was quite early on in that journey. And Alex has also joined us to speak about ethical AI use cases. So this is kind of a follow-up, wrap-up session where we talk about those topics, of course, but also kind of a state of the nation. Where are we at? Where has AI actually been really successful in helping hiring teams, and where can we still see that, okay, there's some friction, there's some use cases that might not be suitable for AI yet, or maybe forever, who knows? We're also going to talk a little bit about vendor accountability and changing candidate behaviors. So lots of really interesting topics. We'll do a Q&A at the end of the session. So add your questions, your comments in the chat or the Q&A function, and we'll get to those. And of course, we're recording today's session, so it'll be available to you afterwards as well. But all right, let's see. So most people, from what I can see right now, are saying that they're using AI for setup and admin. So job ads, prep work, transcriptions. Might not be that surprising. Let's look ahead a little bit. I'm going to launch the next question, which is where do you think you will be using AI in 1 year? So let's see if we have the same there. So far, screening seems to be the next implementation. So we're going logically from the early stages here onto later in the process.
Like chronologically, almost.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh, very interesting. Okay, yeah. So if you haven't already started with setup and admin, I guess that's where you're going next, and then screening is the next, is what we're getting from this poll. So thank you all of you who shared with us where you're at. always good to know. But let's jump into the first topic. So, I mean, if we start with you, Alex, what have you seen that has not really been a successful application of AI in recruitment, either on like a larger scale or individual use cases that you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, I might have a different take on this, but what I see is that AI is of course a really useful tool, and it does help, especially in those things that a lot of you already realize, in screening, but in admin prep and all of that. But what I've been, talking to a lot of customers, it's clear that if you have a vague or unclear recruitment process, so you're not really sure what you're looking for, you don't really have a set idea of what the recruitment process looks like, what it aims to do, what it's trying to measure, and I mean, of course, that will differ depending on the role you're trying to hire. And then you add an AI on top of that. So you think that, oh, this is going to be the saving grace that's going to help us, move things faster. Yes, they will probably go faster, but I'm quite certain that if you don't, I mean, you can't fix a vague process by automating it. You just get vague decisions faster. So I sometimes think that before you go out and go like, oh, I want to buy all these amazing cool tools, because there's a lot of cool tools out there. Like, I mean, take a step back and like, do we have a process that actually can handle like the next level in our process? Like, do we actually know what we're hiring for? Do we know how we hire for that? Do we know how processes look like? And all of those things. Like, what does good performance look like within your organization? And then build a process, then go on and automate it and add AI tools.
So if we look at it from the context of this question, you're saying that a lot of companies might not have the foundation to actually be successful with AI tools.
That is what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah. But that makes sense. Fredrik, what have you seen in terms of non-successful use cases?
I agree with Alex. I mean, if you don't know what to automate, because most of the AI that is used today is automating the existing process, and if you don't have a clear existing process, it's hard to automate the process. It actually makes sense. So that's a major problem. I also think that during the last year, actually, we see some maturity in the implementations of AI in general. People are starting to really focus AI implementation on the true problems that they're having in the recruitment process. So they're starting with the problems more often today than they used to. Previously, they were more focused on the feature side and the functionality of the AI. Today, they are also asking where to implement AI, where not to implement AI, which I think is important. I also believe, and I always recommend people to ask the question, not just what kind of functionality the AI will provide, but actually ask how the AI is doing. And that's important, because I see a lot of failures when AI doesn't meet the expectations. It's easy to see a very smooth and easy candidate experience using AI, but there is a lot of complaints about hard to understand how the AI is doing. So there creates a mistrust between the recruiters and the AI in terms of which candidates that is shortlisted or not shortlisted by the AI. So there is those kind of things. When customers now start to experience the usage of AI, they start also to see the where it can be applied and where it shouldn't be applied. And what I've seen so far in terms of successful cases is obviously in the early stages on the funnel, in terms of administrations, creating job ads, etc. Those are easy things to implement. It quickly creates a value. But when it comes to, for example, screening and shortlisting, people start to be cautious. It's hard to understand how the AI is doing, because it's in many cases it is a black box. It's not a glass box, and I think that's an important part of why things are failing.
People
Yeah.
are like seeing the cracks a little bit. That's how
Exactly, exactly.
because I
Mm,
really feel that, if we go back 1 year, and maybe we had a webinar like exactly 1 year ago, I think people were super optimistic. They were like, there's so many different use cases. Everyone was just thinking, oh, we can apply it everywhere. That was like it was very much like the Wild West, like cowboy style. People were just like adding AI wherever it could. But I feel like people have more, just like you're saying, Fredrik, they've been taking a step back, maturing a little bit, going like, oh, whoa, hold up a minute, where does it actually add value? So no, like, oh, it doesn't really work here, or then the stuff that I get back, I don't really trust it, whatever it is. Like people are,
mm,
the conversation I'm having with customers is much more about, trying to figure out where it fits and why it fits and where it creates value. So different questions now than just a year ago.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
absolutely. And I think to that point also, I mean, we know that there's new regulation here in the EU when it comes to AI and how it can be used in recruitment, of course, and that's something that companies are also adjusting to. But if we draw the line somewhere there, is the right question that companies should be asking right now, not necessarily can AI do this, but are we willing to kind of take the risk that comes with having AI doing this? Or how can companies think about that, like risk taking in terms of the results versus the potential gains?
Um, I I don't see it in that way. There is I think it's a pretty clear line what you can do and what you cannot do.
Mm,
But I don't think everybody knows about that line. To me, it's obvious if you, I mean, using AI in administrative tasks for the efficiency part, that doesn't risk to harm anyone. But as soon that there is a risk to harming the candidates, that's then it's a big no to me. You always need to, for example, we are working with high risks system. That's what it's called by the European AI Act. And the reason for that is because getting a job is affects people's life in general. So doing that with risk is not a good thing. We need to be 100% sure what we are doing when we're shortlisting people
mm,
with the AI. There must be a full transparency that the vendor is using or the company is using AI in this stage. It must be fully explainable and transparent, meaning that the recruiters can fully explain how the AI has taken the decision to shortlist this person or not. It also has to be consistent, meaning if the candidate provide exactly the same answer multiple times, it should be listed exactly the same way and rated exactly the same way. To me, that's a human right. If we cannot stand for that, there's a big no. We will not use it. And so to me, there's no line. It's
yeah,
clear what can be done and what cannot be done
mm,
out there.
mm.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of vendors out there don't follow these guidelines of how this should be. Uh,
And that's the
and
thing,
that's
right?
an issue.
It
Yeah,
is.
and that creates a mistrust in the entire community, I think.
Yeah. No, I really think that, the buyers, and a lot of people in this call are buyers of this type of system. They really need to make sure that, when you're buying an AI tool that is doing what you're saying, Fred, like making a decision or, making some kind of recommendation, something saying that this one has a higher match than this one, whatever it is, you as a buyer need to make sure that you've looked into the company, you've tested it, accountability, traceability, explainability, all of those things. You need to be able to cover those things. Because if a candidate comes, like you're saying, Fred, like, hey, when I get a job, and you go, I don't know how that happened, but you got a lower score. That I mean, you're in for a bad, bad experience. I can tell you that.
Yeah, and from a candidate perspective, I mean, if
Yeah.
I get an answer telling me, yeah, the model decided that you were, I was like, that, that creates a huge mistrust, and it's a massive risk of destroying your employee brand.
Yeah, and
So
add on top of that that you have a very unclear process. You don't even know what you're really looking for, and now you're using a tool that's very unclear on how it
exactly.
evaluates candidates.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
have a double whammy of a lot of bad decisions.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, and I mean, I'm gonna skip ahead to this
Oh,
one
sorry.
already. No, 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 that's fine.
Sorry,
We'll
Tove.
jump
Just
between the
jumping around.
I
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
I didn't
It's a
know.
conversation. This is exactly why we have this type of conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but I think because when we talk about accountability, of course, there's a lot of accountability on the buyer side, but then from the vendor side, to your point, Fredrik, there's a lot of vendors who are maybe claiming a lot of things that, a lot of outcomes are sold as true and tried, but we don't actually have proof that it works that way.
Yeah.
So where should we I guess, how should companies think about assessing a vendor and understanding, like, are they actually, are they being accountable for this? Can they actually prove that this is working? How much? And that's kind of where I think of the risk factor. It's not necessarily risking not following the EU AI Act, but more so we're choosing to trust that this vendor is actually doing what they're saying they're doing, that the system works the way they're saying it's doing, and that the decisions we can expect from this, it's actually going to be the outcome that we see. So what are your thoughts kind of on how you can be a little bit more, I guess, certain?
Obviously, these are, it requires some expertise knowledge, both from a legal perspective, but also from an IT perspective. So usually I recommend any TA team or HR team to get some advice from their IT department or legal department in these type of questions, because they usually have some processes around to assess vendors providing AI, where they basically list a number of questions that they ask the vendor to respond to in a clear way. Um, so that's my first advice when it comes to that. It's about asking exactly. Sorry, I need to grab some water.
No worries.
It's about asking the vendor where exactly they use AI and how they use AI in that stage, what kind of AI they're using in that stage, where in the process is used, how are the outcome measured and validated. Can decisions be explained and audited, traceable, stuff like that. I think that is important. Just for everyone to know, I think it's important for everyone to understand what kind of role do a vendor like Hubert that creates AI algorithms, what kind of role we have in this is that it differs really. Any company that puts an AI algorithm at the market, like Hubert, is responsible for that AI algorithm. If Jobylon is using that algorithm, then we are still responsible. It's not Jobylon's responsibility. It's still our model. And then, so it always belongs to the vendor providing the AI algorithm. And that is a massive difference between the GDPR, where the usage of GDPR, those are the ones responsible for it. But in this case, any provider of an AI system or AI algorithm are responsible for that system algorithm.
Yeah,
That's a really good
yeah.
clarification for sure.
Yeah.
Alex, say.
No. I was just gonna say, like, going back to your point, I think it's really good that, like, I mean, if you can't understand how it works, you won't also understand when it fails, right? Like, so
Exactly.
as you say, you need to make sure you have a really good conversation with your potential vendor, and asking these questions, like you were saying, Fredrik, like, so you actually have a clear, way of understanding how it acts. But isn't that, Fredrik, I was just thinking about that, like whose responsibility it is, because we had a workday situation where there was a company that were using their algorithm to screen candidates. This was in the US, it might be different, but they were screening candidates, and there was a situation discussion that it was mainly or possibly like discriminating on age. I think you're right. I think since it was Workday who provided the algorithm, they were the one being sued and not the company that used Workday's algorithm. So that would be the same as you said, right? Like going back to who is the one that's responsible for the usage of it.
Yes, exactly. So that's differs. If you break the GDPR laws as a controller, you are the ones that get sued. But in this case, it's actually the provider of the solution
Mm.
that will be responsible for it.
So
Yeah.
from a company perspective, you might be willing to risk that because you're not going to be the one being sued. But to your previous point, it will definitely affect your employer brand and how
Exactly.
you see it.
That's the problem. It still will affect your employer brand for being, not being cautious what kind of AI tools you're using.
Mm, absolutely, absolutely. And I think going back to kind of what we've seen where AI has not been helpful, I just wanted to dig a little bit deeper into that, into a couple of specific use cases. And I think the first one is sourcing and outreach, where I know, Alex, you have some thoughts on this in terms of AI maybe not being super helpful yet in terms of finding the right candidates, or what do you say?
I mean, what AI is it's very tenacious. Like it's gonna keep reaching out. And I think there was one study. I think it's getting a bit old now, but that AI was actually quite good at converting candidates. But it was mainly because they kept sending that third or fourth message to the candidate, and after a while they're like, okay, I might be interested in this job. Whereas a human might go like one or two messages and then go like, oh, this is awkward. I'm not gonna send a third message. So I think that, I mean, it made an impact in that way that it just kept spamming ish. But I feel like what's been done now, and is that we're optimizing for sending, but not for being worth receiving, essentially. So it's like a lot about just, you know, I feel like we're getting into the same issues as we have with generic outreach when it comes to sales, getting spam from multiple different areas. I know a lot of people probably in this call as well get all of these, it's coming from everywhere. Email, LinkedIn, you get all of this, and you can just feel that it's super generic, super AI generated stuff that reaches you, and very few things actually goes through. So yeah, we can send much easier, but is it really worth sending? I think that's a big problem, and I don't think it's fixing the issue that we have with outreach or
Mm,
sourcing. No.
definitely. Fredrik, from your side, I mean, we've spoken at length about agentic AI previously, and it is obviously still a very exciting part of AI that we're still moving into in a lot of ways. But from companies that you've seen that have already started working in a more agentic way, what have you seen in terms of things maybe not working the way it was expected to, or yeah, just in general?
I don't think, I mean, it depends how you define agentic. I don't think there are many companies actually doing agentic stuff in the recruitment sector yet. Quite few. I haven't seen one single one doing true agentic stuff. It's the AI that is used today is more or less automating single tasks like creating a job ad, like screening a candidate or reading a CV or whatever it is. So I don't think I think there's a resistance to using agents because as soon as you're using agents, it will start taking decision on itself. And suddenly you get into the problem of, okay, do I really trust my AI to take my decisions, and can they be explainable? How can I trace all the decisions that they've taken throughout the journey? So I don't think the technology yet is that mature using agents for recruitment yet. I think we will see agents being deployed in other areas first, and once the technology is mature, we will probably see them be appear more and more often in the TA space as well.
Mm,
Or have you seen anything else, Alex?
No, I mean, we have a few customers that are super like forward leaning. So we have a few cases of customers doing a very like cool agentic flow essentially. So they have a lot of different agents doing different things, and sort of they take the candidate all the way from the screening step where they, screen them quickly over WhatsApp with a few basic questions like, can you work these hours? Can you do these things? And then as you do, you get a new text saying, hey, you passed to the next part. This is a test. You get the test link sent to you. If you score above a threshold, it gets sent to the next step, which is like a hiring manager interview, and they get sent to the sort of link to book their interview. So like the agent like gets the candidate through the process in these parts. And I've been sort of talking to a lot of customers about this use case, and people go like, oh, that sounds amazing, but not for us. I think it goes back to what you're saying, Fredrik. It's like people are maybe a little bit scared of losing that control, because essentially the only interaction that the hiring manager has is that something gets booked in their calendar. They show up in the interview and
Yeah.
they conduct the interview. Uh, Everything that happens before that has already been predefined. But actually, when you zoom out, it's not that different from, a very mechanical recruitment process, right? We already do this to a certain degree, right? We might have, very strict conditional questions that we want people to answer, or requirements. Then you might have the assessment, or you might have the Hubert, and you go like above or below, you go forward, and then you count together like a combined score. So and we know it's a good way of doing it, but it feels scary that someone else that is not a human is doing all of these things for us. But we will probably make the same decisions.
Yeah, and I agree. But in that case, the case you describe, Alex, there is a really good one.
Yeah.
To me, it's not really an agentic journey. It's
Oh, not fully.
but
No, no,
no,
no, no.
it's a
It's
very,
not.
very structured
Yeah.
process, which is the first thing you need to have. And then
Mm.
you have multiple agents doing different tasks, but it is very rule-based. It's
It's
not,
very rule-based,
it,
100%.
it is
Yeah.
completely rule-based. So it's not the true agentic, there is agentic deciding with which path the candidate should take along this journey. It is a very rule-based and structured interview, which is a brilliant way of working
Oh
for
yeah,
sure.
and always has been, right?
Yeah.
It's an automated version of it, and it saves a lot of time. No, exactly like you say. Another way would be, and we have a certain parts that are going there, a bit like Hubert, another where
Yeah.
you start a call with an AI, and you start exploring who you are, and goes like, hey, actually, we have this job available for you. Would that be interesting? And then it's sort of depending on how you answer, it will go forward. But yeah, it's um, it's
And,
interesting.
and that's also another area I think we will see. We're seeing candidates using agents to support them in the recruitment
Yeah.
processes to apply for jobs now. I think that will grow dramatically. And if you look for during the last 12 months, that has really started to increase in certain markets where it has gone crazy, where candidates can use tools to apply to hundreds of jobs every day and causes a crisis or a tsunami of applications in any TA team in that market with a massive amount of applications, and more or less they're looking exactly the same because they've been fine-tuned by the same agent, which put which put the TA teams into a very difficult situation.
Yeah, I love the app, or I mean, maybe I shouldn't promote it, but it's called Lazy Apply. I just love
Yeah,
it.
I know.
It's apply, a lazy apply. You sort of add your information. It goes like, I'm gonna go search for jobs for you, and like, blah, it just goes out. And
I know. It's brilliant.
Yeah. But what kind of, because moving into that, of course, we
Mm.
are seeing that change that candidates are using AI a lot, and that is
Yeah.
definitely affecting hiring teams. So, in what way can hiring teams kind of, can they brace for this, or is this just kind of this is the new era, we need to adapt to this, but then how do you actually adapt to that? Because it's increased volumes, like you said, but
Yeah.
there's also increased uniformity, right? So everything looks the same, feels the same, it's optimized towards the same job ads.
Yeah.
And the job ads might also be written by AI. So at some point, we're just kind of layering this into something that is this still a viable way to assess people, or do we need to move away from all of the kind of written material? I guess is my long-term question here. What do you say, Fredrik?
Um, I mean, what we see right now is AI fighting AI. That's what you're
Yeah.
describing. I mean, candidates using AI and to keep up with these volumes that the TI teams are facing, they deploy AI to keep up with that, like CV screening, etc. I think the process in general is broken. I don't think it can continue like that because when CV starts to look the same and the volumes are increasing, it's also it's hard to find the signals in those CVs of who's better than the other, and that creates a bad quality of the screening in general. And I think we need to look into a different way of screening candidates going forward.
Mm,
What is that, Fredrik?
That's I believe what we are doing, of course, are doing a structured interviews, and because that's harder to use AI and it reflects the candidates in a much better way. We can capture all the type of competences and requirements and motivations in such an interview in a much better way than you can ever find in a CV, which typically lacks some information. It's hard to compare because you don't have perfect information about all the candidates. So one way of doing it is using the structured interviews, and to me, it's just it's a way of applying AI on science and structure that has been validated for a long time, and we know that they work. So I think it's a good way.
Alex, what do you say? Is the
No, I have a few
from
different takes on this one because I find that there's a multitude of issues going in. I mean, just like you said, I think that the processes we're using is not going to work going forward. I also think that the process has never been truly great. I mean, we're using proxies all the time, CV or written communication, it's just that with AI, it's revealing how weak it is. I think it's sort of showcasing the flaws in the selection methods we're using. I think there's two parts we need to think about this. One is I don't think we as employers are clear enough in our communication towards candidates about also like who are we actually looking for. Like I think it's very important that you are clear about what does performance look like in this organization, in the job ad, and also like who do we want to apply here, and also maybe who do we not want people to apply here, to make it very clear for the candidates out there, like this is not a job for you if blah 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 blah, but this is the job if you want to do here. So there's one part of it is like a little bit like what message are we sending out. Of course you're still gonna have people that just press easy apply, but it might at least make it much clearer what you're looking for, and then you might also have clear differentiation about what you are screening for, what you are looking for, which will sort out more candidates earlier about that as well. So I think there's one part that we can really be better at. This is like how do we communicate to candidates about what the job is about and how to do it. And the other part I want to add super quickly before I forget it, because my brain is going haywire, is that speaking of AI and usage of that, I feel like there's a little bit of a communication now. It's like, oh, we should try and get candidates not to use AI. We sort of say it's bad that they're using, it's cheating that they're using AI in interviews or in case studies or in resumes. I think that's the really wrong way to go about it. I think I had a really good discussion yesterday with a few customers, and what they said is that I asked them, do you have an AI policy for the candidates? And they said, no. And I was like, so they don't know if they should or when they should use AI when applying for a job for you. And they said like, no, but of course, we don't want them to use AI for an interview. I was like, but have you said that they shouldn't? I think it's also like you need to be clear that, maybe you create a case where you say, for this case interview, we highly recommend that you use AI because you're not going to be able to do this case. But maybe if you're doing a personal, behavior-based interview, you should say, I'm interested in you. I want to know who you are and what you've done. And I know you can use AI, but for this interview, we would highly recommend that you don't use it because we want to know who you are. Of course, that's not going to stop them from using it, but it clearly states also why you're using that method and giving the candidate an sort of an indication that, okay, maybe I shouldn't use it here because it's not going to add value because they're looking at something that is me. And AI can't be me.
It's a very interesting point. Yeah.
I also think, I mean, from a candidate experience perspective, when the volume's increasing, the number of no's will be so much more. And that's a problem. I really mean it. Right now, the number one problem with the candidate experience is no, thank you. You're not chosen for this job. The more you as a candidate get a no, the worse the experience will be. And I think that there's a great job that needs to be done here. I mean, the tools like you mentioned, Alex, like laser apply, they might be so intelligent in the future that they can advise you to get fewer no's and hopefully creating a much better experience for the candidates.
Yeah, imagine if they worked in co instead, not trying to say apply for as many jobs as possible. It's like apply for the jobs where you are more likely to actually move forward.
Exactly. And that's what I hope for.
Yeah.
That's when we're really going to see that success. But I mean, it's very clear that the dynamic has kind of changed in terms of once candidates start using AI, yeah, there is some sort of I don't want to say leverage battle, but it is a little bit out of a dynamic change for sure.
And may I add that, let's be honest here, when the application volume's increasing, that puts more pressure to the TA team. So if you have like going from 50,000 candidates a year ago on an annual basis to 100,000 candidates, it's not like the TA team will double in size. That won't happen. I mean, just go through 100,000 CVs manually on an annual basis. That's about 500,000 minutes and 8,000 hours and like 5 people working full time, just all year around, just scanning and going through those CVs. That won't happen. There is no money in the TA teams to support that kind of pressure, and there will not be.
That math ain't mathin', that's clear.
Yeah.
Exactly. The math ain't mathin'.
Exactly.
And if anything with AI, I guess the TA teams are getting smaller, so increased volume,
Exactly.
smaller teams. Yeah, but we need to, of course, also talk a little bit about where AI has actually been really helpful, right? And we have touched upon parts of this, of course, with screening being a use case, earlier in the process being a good use case in general, right? So not the decision making necessarily. I think hopefully everyone on this in the session agrees with that conclusion. But when it comes to kind of measuring this success and seeing how successful we actually are over time, what data points, what KPIs should teams be looking at to see that their implementation of AI have actually been successful? What are your thoughts there? And obviously it's going to be different for different types of AI.
You want to start, Alex?
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, okay. I mean, I've said this multiple times, and of course we can optimize for. I think it. I mean, oh, sorry. I'm gonna start over.
Do it.
When you have like two thoughts coming at you at the same time from your brain, and you have to choose which one. I didn't have time to do that. I think time to rejection, time to hire. Those have been very operative stuff to look at. Is sort of an indication of how quickly a candidate moves through the process, and there's no sort of self goal with that one, right? If it goes down to zero, is that what you're aiming for? Probably not. Like, it only tells you how quickly candidates go through the process. But what you can do is start measuring it if you're not measuring it, and see when you apply a new AI assisted tool, or you do something, make a change in the process to see, does it go up or does it go down? Because actually, I think it might go up to a certain degree because you're taking more time to make decisions, but the time between steps might be quicker. So the process might be longer because you're doing different things, but how quickly a candidate goes from one step to the next might actually decrease. So you have to look at it from different perspectives. So like how long does a candidate stay within one step? Hopefully that will go down. So there's always a momentum, because you do two things in a recruitment process. You either give one person a job and you reject the rest, right? And we want to get to the decision of either rejecting or moving forward as quickly as possible. And that's what AI can help. It can sort of, it won't make decisions for you, but they can make decisions easier to make. So hopefully your time to make a decision will go down. So I think that's very interesting. But what I do think is like, the other metrics are like, did the people that we hired using this, did the quality go up? Did we actually have a higher quality of hire as a result? Are people staying longer? Or, I mean, quality of hire can be many different things. People are staying, if people stay after 18 months, you maybe say like that was a successful hire, because then the person has made back the money cost to hire that person. But it can also be if the hiring managers feel like the candidate that they hired lived up to their expectations, and those type of more lagging metrics that we've been trying to measure a little bit. Hopefully we can start measuring those more now that we have a bit more time, hopefully, with AI. So those type of metrics, I really do think we should focus more on than the more operational metrics. They can sort of be just more like a sanity check on how are we performing, how is our time to hire, and if it starts going up again, you need to maybe start looking at your process. So it's more like a quality hygiene thing, but we need to shift to more quality focus.
Yeah,
nothing new. Like, this has been said 1,000 times, but
yeah, and I agree with you, Alex, fully there. I think also it's very much about the problem we're trying to solve with the implementation of the AI. So measuring not just the activity, but also what outcomes do we want to change?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That's the most important thing, and that could be an increased efficiency, a higher quality, or better candidate experience. So I really think it starts with what do we want to accomplish, but
What do we
setting
want to
targets
measure?
based on outcomes rather than just activity. That's my then there's a lot of KPIs that could be used, but really start with the problem and the expected outcome you desire, or the desired outcome.
No, exactly. I mean, and it will depend greatly on the company, right? Another cool metric could be qualified candidates in the pipeline, right? How we had 80 applicants, but actually 60 of them were qualified. Like, wow, we did a really good job with attracting people that are qualified. I mean, then we've done a really good job. We have a harder time because we have 60 people we need to make a decision on.
Good sourcing.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
It's good.
Absolutely. And I think when it comes to this, I mean, of course, there's always going to be ways of measuring, but I think what we come back to is the same point as earlier, right? If you want to add AI to recruitment process, you need a good foundation to do so. And the same here, right? If you want to measure the impact of AI, you need to kind of look at what the outcomes you want to achieve, of course, but also what the data looked like before. So what have you actually been accomplishing previously in the recruitment process?
Absolutely. Like get a baseline.
Differences. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, get some baseline, and most ATSs have some kind of reporting function where you can have that. So
Exactly. But always good to know your starting point before you start measuring impact for sure. We're gonna move into Q&A shortly, but I just wanted to ask as well, kind of if you were, or when you are talking to TA leaders right now, and we're talking about AI and kind of being serious about this topic, right? Maybe we've had our little trial period for a year, we've tried different things, some has worked, some hasn't. What should teams kind of prioritize right now, or leaders prioritize right now when it comes to AI and getting that kind of checkbox done with for the recruitment process? What do
I
you
think
see?
that's a very boring one. Like
Yeah,
start with clarity, not with the tools.
yeah,
And I think that applies to you. I mean, you said that before as well, Fredrik. I think you agree with that one. It's like if you don't know what you're measuring, like even if you add a really good tool like Hubert, like what did you say? It's always correct, right? Can't you do that? Because that was before we started this talk, right?
Yeah. Regarding I think that's I mentioned that the times when Hubert fails and my answer to that is Hubert never fails in the judgment of a candidate, in the evaluation of a candidate. It only fails if you don't have a clear competence profile that Hubert can work against. So if you don't know what you want, then Hubert will not be able to help you out. But if you know what you want, Hubert will be perfectly assistant for you.
Mm.
And
Yeah,
I think that's the same thing here. You need to start with the problem and create a structured process before even going into trying to solve it with AI.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've used this analogy a lot of times, and I mean, I use it every time I can because I think it really speaks to this because it really ties into what you're saying, Fredrik, is that, going back really to the basics is, the requirement profile. Like what are we, because we're building the entire recruitment process is built on the requirement profile. Every selection method you're using should aim at covering the stuff that was in the requirement profile. And I say this time and time again, if you're on the equator and you're aiming to go to the North Pole, and you're 7 degrees off, meaning you did, just a few things in requirement profiles were not exactly what you actually were looking for, you're going to end up in Canada. You're not going to end up at the North Pole, and you're going to be very disappointed and angry that you didn't.
exactly. Very, very good summary of what we've talked about as well. So it all comes back to the foundation and the basics in place, and then you can implement AI and actually see great outcomes, is what I'm hearing from both of you. But let's see what questions we have. And we actually had a couple questions that came in quite early, but one of them, which I think is interesting for you, Fredrik, is kind of how, because there's been a lot of talk, and we've had that discussion internally as well, of course, with candidates using AI in interview situations and actually getting responses up on screen to kind of know what to answer, right? So you kind of have a live model running in the background telling you what to answer. What are you doing or seeing that's being done to circumvent that kind of use case from candidates?
So you mean what are they doing to screen candidates today? Is
Oh,
that
more like when candidates are using that technology, like is there a way to make sure that that's not happening when you're holding like an interview, for example?
Yeah, I think I mean it's about being clear what you want, and that's a problem. I think you need also to understand what kind of technology you're using for your screening, and I think you have to use deterministic models. Now we're getting into details rather than using probability-based models like the big LLM models. Relying on a probability, to me, that's not good enough because that in that case there's a high probability that you might end up in the shortlist. But you not need to be 100% sure that this is a candidate that should end up in the shortlist or not. So using the deterministic model is my answer to that rather than using probability-based models.
Yeah, because I think the issue that we've heard from not necessarily customers, but just in general, that seems to be an issue is that a lot of candidates, if they are using kind of a chat-based support in the back to tell them what to reply, right? There's a lot more candidate that goes through the first screening process, which means that the screening is not as effective because so many candidates are coming through that shouldn't be coming through, that aren't qualified, that are kind of lying about their qualifications, right?
Yeah.
So then we're kind of stuck in the same problem with TA teams, having too many candidates again, even though they have a good screening tool. Alex,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on this?
What is the question? There's so many. There's just statements. Was there a
Yeah,
question?
exactly.
Is
No, but
that?
the question that came in was really long, so I tried to summarize it.
Oh, yeah,
Essentially,
yeah.
interviews candidates using kind of
Oh,
AI support to help them with their answers.
yeah. But I think I answered that one before. It's like,
Yeah.
did you say that we're not allowed to do that? Like,
Yeah.
have you clearly stated that for this interview we don't want you to
Yeah.
use that?
Mm,
I'm not. People are still gonna, do that.
mm,
But actually, there's a really good technique. I don't want to go, for you becoming technical. I want to be psychology technical, but there is a way to combat that because if you have a candidate that's, you go like, oh, this person is using some kind of AI tool to help them out. At least for now, they always want to go back to a very long monologue. They want to be very generic, and that's
mm,
how the AI it just talks in generic terms. When I was taught about in school about a psychology program about interviewing, you should go down to the details. So they would be like, how many were in the team? How did they react? What did that person say when you said that? You go into the context-based aspects of the behavior-based question or technical question, because that's when the LLMs at the moment, when they're trying to help a candidate, they will fail. You will clearly see
mm,
that they will have a hard time doing that. So if you want to sort of expose them, that's one way of doing it, really digging down into the context. You have the STAR method. I hate STAR. I think STAR is, task, whatever is that. I think SCAR is a better abbreviation. So, situation, dig down in that. And then C is context. What was it about it? What happened? And then A is action, the behavior, and then a result is the R. So SCAR, really good method of really digging deep. And it works well for technical based interviews as well, because you can really go in, okay, but how do you think, why did you come to that conclusion? How did you do that? What was the reasoning behind that? And what would you have done differently if you had to do it today? But
mm.
it doesn't solve the problem because you still have a really bad candidate that's lying to you. So,
Yeah.
but at least you can expose it a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just being vigilant, I guess, is the solution right now, right? To just be a
Yeah.
little bit on your guard without being too suspicious.
Mhm.
Uh, what would you say is the difference between, I think this was a great question. What's the difference between the teams where AI has actually worked versus the ones where it quietly kind of moved aside after trying things out? What do you think? What kind of sets the teams apart where AI seems to have been working so far? Fredrik, what do you say? Have you seen anything in your customer base?
Yeah, I think so. I think first of all, the successful AI implementations, they are focusing around solving the problem and measuring the outcomes of that. I think the second thing that mostly fail is that anchor this implementation along the organization, meaning that everybody needs to understand why we're doing this and get them to change their behavior. So not just adding AI to the existing process, but adding AI in order to change the process in a certain way, and everybody agrees on that. So anchor it in the team is usually critical for making a successful implementation. I would say those are the two most important success factors that strikes me at this time.
Mm.
I couldn't agree more, Fredrik, with that one because I've seen it time and time and time again. I mean, it's not unique to AI. Let's be honest about that. It's any tool that you implement, whether it's an ATS or if it's an assessment system or a screening tool. Like that's all. The technical implementation is always super easy. It's just a flip. It's an API call, and then it's like done, all good. Now you have it. But then it's like, do people trust it? Like you were saying in the beginning, Fredrik, like, do people trust the outcome? Do people actually make decisions based on the data that was provided? So you say we have, data going back to the 1800s indicating that general mental ability is the strongest predictor for future performance. And still you have candidates go, higher managers go like, oh, but I don't feel like that. I'm going to go with the people that have, whatever score they have. And like, okay, but they're not gonna have the impact that you want because you don't trust in the system, because you haven't built the foundation. So the human implementation takes time because you know what, Fredrik, as you say, it's a human behavior change. And if there's one thing humans don't want is to change their behavior because it costs calories and we want to be on the couch eating chips.
Mic drop
A good
moment.
summary.
Yeah, very, very good. Yeah, I like that. I actually kind of don't want to have another question after that, but I have more that I need to ask that we got in here, or there's actually more, but I think we're going to round off with this one, and that is asking about the structured interview methodology that you use at Hubert. So what specific mechanisms do you use to evaluate and screen candidates, which I think is interesting in the context of kind of what you should be looking for.
Yeah. So we are using that as a foundation for our technology, meaning that we're asking all the candidates the same type of questions, and we're evaluating them exactly the same way, which is a core fundamental of how we're interviewing people. What kind of questions? Of course, and in an interview, there is hard requirements. There are experiences, motivations, and competency-based questions. But there is also an opportunity to describe the position, to get the candidates to really understand what type of work this is, and so on. So that's how it works.
Very good. And Alex, I mean, just kind of closing off a little bit on the discussion, but of course we've talked about, okay, using AI early in the process. Is there anything that companies should be doing or teams should be doing when it comes to interviews, like later in the stage that you would see would be supported by AI or should be supported by AI?
Oh, I mean, transcribing interviews is a really nice cognitive, like there's a lot of cognitive load when you do an interview as it is. And having someone taking notes for you, it's a godsend. Like, I used to do a lot of interviewing back in the days, and you're typing away and you're trying to still be vigilant on the candidate. And imagine, sitting there and you want to go down into the context, like I was saying, you got the situation, you want to go into the context. You can't do that if you're also like typing away, so many words a minute just to keep all the context. So transcribing is an amazing way to do it because then you can use it in any how you want to summarize it and do it. And yes, always do a structured interview. Same questions to all candidates so you can compare them. Otherwise, there's no way of comparing candidates. Like you can't. Whatever you say, then you're basing it on gut feeling.
Absolutely. I actually had a discussion with some TA leaders yesterday, and they said that they're transcribing and then they're using like any note taking that they're doing is more focused on the human side of things.
Yes.
So like, did they have ready examples? Were they able to give details? Were they able to, pick up on subtle themes that were suggested to them or things like that? That is kind of hard for a transcription to pick up on, but it's
Impossible.
a very, very human side of things, right? So then you can focus more on that.
And picking up on behaviors that won't be visible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But very good. Okay, great questions. There are a few more, but we're gonna get back to you. Those of you who ask those questions, we'll get back to you after the session because we simply are out of time. But thank you so much, Fredrik and Alex, for joining us. Thank you to all of you who joined us live and all of you who are watching the recording, of course, also. And great discussion. We look forward to seeing the future, of course, of AI, just like all of you are. We'll be following along, and I'm sure we'll have a discussion soon again in terms of things happening fast. So we need to we need to have this kind of sessions to catch up on what's happening. Thank you so much, Alex and Fredrik, for joining us. You're very inspiring. So I hope we're all inspired to do more things with AI now.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
See you
Bye-bye.
next time.
Bye bye.